Okay. Just close this window over here. So now we're picking up good friends on Instagram Live and Facebook, and of course our Zoomers, which give it a few moments just to gather some wonderful Jewish souls and non-Jewish souls to our classes. Okay, that's great. Okay, feel free towards the end to write any questions. Hello, Flora, welcome. David Warner, good to see you, my friend. Thanks for the wave. You can write questions. Those who are on Zoom with us this evening can put your questions if you have any, which I will attempt, with no promises, to get, because we have a lot of information to download this evening. That's awesome. Okay, that's great. Okay. So welcome everyone. Welcome our Zoom friends and our Instagram Live friends, and of course, where would we be without Facebook? Welcome. Tonight's discussion, my dear friends, is a talk called 10 Statements That Change the World. It could be 10 statements and 5 ideas that change the world. You know what? We'll leave that open. Let's see how the evening progresses. So Judaism, as I've mentioned before many times, is not just a practicing religion, it's also a thought-based one. And of course, it's a visual experience. We look at things, and the designs that are used to form things are there to give us a message as well. One thing I'll be speaking about near Rosh Hashanah is how you're not just meant to hear the shofar, but you're also meant to look at the shape and see the twisted quality that is in the, actually a shofar by definition shouldn't be a straight trumpet. It should be a little bit twisted, because when you look at the trumpet, you'll be like, you know what? My new year is beginning. I'm a little bit twisted and I got to work and improve myself. So we're not just into hearing things or learning about things, but there is an idea of a visual impact of a mitzvah having some kind of hashba'ah, some kind of impact on ourselves, on our minds. There's a lot of symbolism that comes forth in Judaism. Probably, that's my little introduction. Probably, my friends, one of the biggest symbols, if you will, or designs that you will see in what I've seen in my experience, the vast majority of synagogues around the world, you will see the same design. And I mentioned this in passing last week. Today we're going to double click on it to try to get a real understanding of what's happening with this idea. And the idea is the Aseret HaDibrot. I'm going to translate that for now as the 10 Commandments. It's a mistranslation. It's not the 10 Commandments. We're actually going to see there are more than 10 Commandments in the 10 Commandments. If you want to be clear, there's actually 13. It's good trivia questions for your Friday night table. How many commandments are there in the 10 Commandments? The answer is 13. You can, get your kids or grandkids out on that one. But we're going to call it 10 Commandments for the time being. And if you look at the design in most synagogues, you'll see this kind of arch, double arches, not the stuff that we don't eat in, but the double arches that appear on synagogue walls, in or out. However, that's not the real design of the original Aseret HaDibrot 10 Commandments. They were not designed like this. This design is maybe 400-500 years old. I read actually that it's actually meant to be the shape of a heart, right? There's the two sides of the heart. It's the heart design we have now, and it's put onto the tablets themselves. So it's actually the tablets with the heart design on top, that our love is always on these 10 Commandments. Now, I said the word 10 Commandments is not the original, not the accurate translation. The accurate translation are 10 statements. Aseret means 10. Dibrot means statements, utterances, things that were said. And the original design, we said, was not this loopy design. It was actually two blocks, two square blocks. an amma by an amma by an amma. An amma is a biblical measurement. Actually, the word arm comes from the word amma. It's the distance from the top of your middle finger down to the bottom of your elbow. So how big is that? Well, it depends how big you are. 1.5 feet, 2 feet maximum. So this object of stone, that was a block, a square block that was given to Moses, which he presented to the Jewish people twice, as we shall see, is the original design. And there were 2 separate blocks. So let's start with a very simple, almost childish question. Why do we need 2? Now, I think I mentioned last week the quick joke. You need 2 tablets because they were on sale. And if you get one for a good price, you might as well get 2. I call this the Costco theory of life. What's the point of buying one when you can buy 100? That's not the actual answer. The actual answer is that they were deliberately given on 2 separate blocks that were equal in shape and size. Everything about them were exactly the same, except for the words that were etched inside them. Charut al-haluchot, that were etched into the stone itself. So we have 2 separate blocks. Why do we need 2 separate blocks? Assuming that Moses could have found one block big enough to put all of the 10 in one list. If I were to ask you to go shopping because I want to make cholent on Shabbat, and I said, fine, go take a pen and paper and write a list and get me some potatoes and get me some meat. My wife uses cheek meat, highly recommended for your cholent. And go get some beer, a secret ingredient we sometimes put in our cholent, and ketchup, whatever it is, and beans and barley. You don't say, 1 minute. You know what? Stop right there. I've written 5 ingredients down. Let me put that aside, get another piece of paper to put the other 5 ingredients down. You wouldn't do that. Why not? Because 1 piece of paper suffices. Then why exactly do we need 2 separate tablets to engage these 10 commandments? And the famous answer is that the first 5 are what we call in Hebrew ben adam lamakom, between us and God. Mitzvah, between us and God. The second set of 5 are between us and each other, ben adam lachavera. And what we're being told just by the visual design of these tablets is they are separate realities of Judaism, but they are equal. Had you put one on top of the other with a list of 1 through 10, you might have thought incorrectly that the top 5 are more important than the bottom 5, but actually that would be inaccurate. Because by separating them out and putting them separate but equal, you're saying they both have important, valid information. And they are separate areas of Jewish life. How we relate to God is separate but equal of how we relate to each other. The question you may have, though, is, what about number 5? Number 5 is honor your mother and father. That's on the wrong side, isn't it? And the answer you're going to have to say is, well, it's actually on the correct side, the side of between us and God, because when we relate to our parents, we're actually really relating to God as well. There is a direct correlation to our relationship with our parents and God. More about that a little bit later. So tonight, my friends, we're going to play a game. Who doesn't like games? And the game is this. The fact that the 2 blocks are put next to each other doesn't just mean that there is a vertical relationship 1 through 5 and 6 through 10. But the fact that put next to each other means there is also, says Rashi and Mechilta, there is a horizontal relationship as well. That means there's something about number 1 that doesn't just relate downwards, but the fact that it's put next to the other 5 means there is a horizontal relationship as well. And number 2 must be connected to number 7. 3 to 8, 4 to 9, and 5 to 10. So the game we're going to play this evening is, I'm going to tell you what each dibor, which each statement is really telling us, and you can think of the connection between them. We're going to end up with 10 statements, but 5 connecting principles that have really created the Jewish people as we are today. Now, the fact that these 10 were separated from the other 603, because we have 630 mitzvot, and these 10 were pulled out, must mean that these 10 are crucial and can tell us something very, very different to the other commandments. Because the other commandments were written down as ink on parchment. And ink on parchment can wear out over months or years. But when you etch something into rock, it's going to stay there forever. So there's something about these 10, although they're part of the 613 mitzvot, and maybe, as it were, not the most important, but there's something very integral about them that needs to have longevity. So that's what we're going to do. Let's start with number one. Number one, you can assume, is probably one of the most important of the 630 mitzvot, that it's number one of the 10. And it is, Anochi Hashem Elokecha. I am the Lord your God. Now, that's a good opener. I mean, if you imagine the 10 commandments, not as two big blocks, but God's business card, you can assume something very important is written on it. Right? They say in the interview, the first 20 seconds are when you clinch the job or not. That's when you're making the most important impression. That's what people in sales always tell us. Same here as well. This is a big opener, and it better be a big opener. And it doesn't get bigger than, I am the Lord your God. Not me, by the way. I'm just quoting what, the book of, Exodus says, chapter 20. I am the Lord your God. Now, the word Anochi is a very unusual word. How do you say I in Hebrew? In modern Hebrew, what would you say? Ani. Ani means I, but can also mean you. I could do it, but if I can't do it, you could do it. So what's this word Anochi? Is that like a, sounds biblical kind of thing? The word Anochi, said the rabbis, isn't I, it means it is I. It's actually 4 letters. Aleph, Nun, Chaf, Yud. And those 4 letters, says the Talmud, represent 4 words. Ana, I, Nafshi, my soul, Ketavti was written, and Yahavti and given. I'll say that again. The word Anochi means, this is God speaking, I, my soul, was written and given. What does that mean? What do you mean, first of all, I don't understand God, let alone his soul. But that's what it means. I, my soul, was written and given. Where was God's soul, the understanding of God's essence, written? In the Torah. So God is telling you, if you want to know what I'm about, if you want to understand God, which I hear so many times, what is the Jewish view of God? How do you understand God? How are you meant to love God? The ultimate answer is going to be, it was written and given. Where? In the Torah. The Torah is the blueprint of the world. If you want to understand the architect, you look at the designs. There's something in the writings that's going to teach you about the person. So too when it comes to God. If you look at God's book, the Bible, you'll understand who God is. In other words, I met many young people who say, I'm an atheist. And I say, have you ever learned the Torah with a proficient person? And they're like, no. I'm like, you're not an atheist then, you're an idiot. How can you profess, I don't actually say that, but I think it, how do you profess to know Torah without reading the Torah itself? Because that is where God's imprint comes from, where it was given. I, my soul is written and given. That's Anochi. That's a big word to start the Aseret Dibrot with the 10 Commandments. And then it says something very unusual. I'm the Lord your God, which I hear. And what does it say right afterwards? Who took you out of the land of Egypt. That's a very strange thing to say. Imagine your God, which for some of you may be easier than others. Imagine from your God, what would you be your big opening? I'm the Lord your God who, I don't know, created the heavens, the universe, the stars, the planets. That's a good opener. I'm the Lord your God who is making your heart beat right now. It doesn't say that. It says, I'm the Lord your God who took you out of Egypt. This is God talking directly to the Jewish people and the Jewish people alone. But why would he say that? Why is that so impressive? I mean, that's got to remain with Torah learners, the Jewish people, for the rest of history. Why isn't it more an impactful statement? I'm the Lord your God who created all the stars in the universe, of which there are 76 stellion. There are more stars in the universe than there are grains of sand in the entire world. Every desert, every beach, every footpath. That will be actually 10 times the amount of stars than every grain of sand in the entire world. That's a big statement. Why took you out of Egypt? Says Nachmanides something so important, my friends. When it says, I'm the Lord your God, took you out of Egypt, it's saying something that had never been said before. And what was that? I am the Lord your God. I am connected to you. You're alive right now because I took you out of Egypt. And if it wasn't you, it was your parents. And if it was your grandparents. And if not great-grandparents. And to this generation, your great-great-great-grandparents. You are free today because I took you out of Egypt. That's a personal relationship to God. You know, when Moses walked in to see Pharaoh, the Midrash tells us, he said, hello, I'm here to represent God, the creator of the universe and everything. And what did Pharaoh do? He called his kids and said, bring me the yellow pages. I'm dating myself. He said, bring me a Google document. And he typed in and said, gods. And he came up with thousands and thousands of gods and says, your God isn't written in over here. And that's the end of the Midrash. What a strange thing to say. There's 50,000 gods in Egypt. Take a pen, 50,001. Yud with a hey with a vav with a hey. That's the God of the Jewish people. Why didn't Pharaoh just say that? Because this was a completely new concept of God. Not a God you feared, right? They used to worship the Nile, right? Because they needed, there was a Nile God. Or they used to worship the sun, Ra, because they needed the sun. So they worshiped the sun God. Or they used to worship the fish because they needed a fish. There was Dagon, the fish God. Here, a brand new concept was introduced to the world which never existed before, which was, I'm the Lord your God who loves you. How do you show love? I'm going to take care of you personally. Don't be just scared of me. Be in awe. But the ultimate relationship that I'm building with you is love. How do you show love? You save someone's life. So it says, I'm the Lord your God who took you out of Egypt, to say there is a personal relationship that God has with all humanity, but especially with the Jewish people. And that is going to be the cornerstone, the bedrock of who we are. Let's jump to the other side, because as you know, we're playing a game. Commandment number one is I'm the Lord your God. Now we jump to the other side. Commandment number 6, there must be some correlation. What's commandment number 6? Lo tirtzach, do not kill. That's weird. What's the connection between don't kill and I'm the Lord your God? There must be a connection. And the answer is, very, very importantly, acknowledgement. You see, when you kill someone, you're saying, I don't acknowledge your existence. You don't have a right to exist in this world. You have forfeited your right to live in this world. Who has a right to say that? God. Do we have a right to say that? Sometimes. Some people act in certain ways, they forfeit the right to life. If they try to attack us, we kill them. So God is the giver of life. So life and death is in the hands of God. Can you kill God? That's a great question, right? You know, in the 1960s, they used to have everywhere graffiti, God is dead. But can you kill God? And the answer is, you can actually. By not acknowledging God's existence. That's how you, as it were, kill God. You're not really killing God, but you are removing God from this world. And so we now have a perfect correlation. We believe in the first commandment. We say, I'm the Lord your God. We believe in God. So we acknowledge one God. And we don't kill each other. Commandment number 6, sideways. And that's how we acknowledge each other. Because the biggest way not to acknowledge another person is by killing them. So acknowledgement, acknowledging a higher power. And through that, each other and everyone's right to life is going to be the first concept that comes out from the Ten Commandments. Number 2. Playing a great game over here. Commandment number 2 is you can't worship other gods. Now I mentioned this is actually 4 commandments in here, right? You can't worship an idol the way it's normally worshipped, an unusual way. 4 different ways of idol worship that are forbidden, which ends up being 4. And the other 9 is 13. That's why, my friends, there are 13 commandments in the 10 commandments, but there are only 10 statements. And here we're told not to worship other gods. What's the big deal, by the way? What's the big problem with idol worship? Why are we obsessed that it made number 2 on the top 10 list of all the mitzvot in the Torah? What's the big deal? So, I worship an idol. Does God really care if I bow down to a stone or a piece of wood? I mean, these people who were bowing down to idols, were they nuts? They weren't. They weren't crazy. They saw something in that tree. They saw something in that idol, whatever it represented. They saw something in that leaf, or whatever it was, or that person. They saw something that was extremely divine. They were seeing something that we can't see. I see a tree, I see a tree. They saw something, and they were trying to connect to that thing. They were wrong, and they shouldn't have done it, but they were trying to connect to that thing in a way. But again, what's the big deal? Let's jump to the other side, because commandment number 7, which is on the opposite side, remember? 2 connects to 7, is going to tell us something about that commandment. What's commandment number 7? Do not commit adultery. Do not commit adultery. Lo tinof. Now, tinof is a very, let's look at that word for a moment. Tinof is a very unusual word. I don't believe, as far as I know, you see it anywhere else in the Torah but over here. And it refers to forbidden sexual relationships that break up a marriage, specifically. Tinof. The word tinof actually is two words. Ten-af. Ten-af means give anger. Why would the word for adultery mean give anger? I'll tell you why. Because there's nothing that makes God angrier, as we see in the Bible and all the scriptures again and again, than the breakdown of the family unit. Nothing, as it were, makes God angrier. And so, if we want to keep whatever it means getting God angry, I don't know what it means, but it doesn't sound good to me. So we don't want to get God angry. So whatever it means, it means. However, what we want to do is keep God happy, right? Sameach with us and our actions. One thing that makes God angry is breaking down the family unit. Okay? And adultery is seen as one of the worst ways to make that happen. So that's forbidden. What's the connection then? It says on one side, don't worship idols. That's between us and God, right? Don't worship foreign gods, right? Don't worship idols, not even American idols. And on the other side, it says, don't commit adultery. What's the connection? So the connection over here is exclusivity. You see, what happened in Mount Sinai when we were given the Torah? We, as it were, married God. The Ten Commandments and the entire Torah is actually, as it were, in a way, a marriage contract, a marriage document. Okay? So what we're actually trying to do is build an exclusive relationship with God. You also try to do that with your spouse. When you're in a relationship, you want to be as exclusive as possible. Where do we see that we are told to be exclusive with our partners? Under the chuppah. The ketubah and the chuppah is a public declaration that we are now exclusive to each other, to the exclusion of anyone else out there. We are now creating an exclusive marriage relationship. We did the same thing at Mount Sinai. We created an exclusive relationship. And so we are told not to cheat on our spouses, but we're also told not to cheat on God. And that's what adultery is. And maybe that's possibly why idol worship is seen as such a bad thing. Because we created a unique and exclusive relationship, but that's broken. That's broken. We go to other idols. We're not affecting God, as it were. However, we are affecting our relationship that we are meant to build with God. Okay, so we've had 4 commandments and 2 connections, acknowledgement and exclusivity. What's commandment number 3? Commandment number 3 is this is unusual. I personally would not have put this in the top 10 of the 10 commandments. I would have put it somewhere deep down. Commandment number, 423 or something, right? 612, I don't know. But I wouldn't have put it here. And yet it does appear in the top 10, which means there's something very important about this commandment. And this commandment is unusual. The commandment is you're not allowed to take God's name in vain. What does that even mean? Not allowed to take the God's name in vain. But I'll tell you a quick story, by the way. My bar mitzvah Torah portion was Yitro. Yitro is in the book of Exodus in Shemot. And it actually has the first of 2 times the 10 commandments are written. So I read the 10 commandments at my bar mitzvah. God knows, not well, but I read the 10 commandments at my bar mitzvah. But I didn't really study it because, like a lot of bar mitzvah boys, you just read and hopefully it comes through at the end. Many years later, I was at university. And the university I went to in the north of England, in Manchester University, I got my degree in political science. I stopped wearing my yarmulke for whatever reasons. I grew up wearing a yarmulke and going to yeshiva. At university, I said, you know what? I don't want my yarmulke. I took it off. However, as I always tell people, you can take off the yarmulke, but you can't take off the Jewish nose. So I was on the bus once, and I'm sitting on the bus, and a priest, right? In England, we call them a vicar, came in with a collar, with the white thing, as we have the Anglican priests, and he walked in. And you know that feeling, although you're sitting on an empty bus, the person who gets on the bus is going to sit right next to you? You know that? I had one of the I'm like, this guy is making a beeline to sit right next to me. And kachava, he walks on, sits right next to me. And he leans over and says, are you Jewish? And I'm like, oh, you can't escape. No yarmulke, but they can always tell. And I said, yes, I am. And he said, I got a question for you. And I was like, uh-oh, question. And he said to me, why is the order of the Ten Commandments in that order? And I thought to myself, I don't even remember the Ten Commandments. And it was a bit of a wake-up call. I mean, I gave him some answer because, you know, I'm a talkative Jew. And I said something, I don't remember what exactly. But I thought to myself, wow, here I am a Jew, right? Spent my entire life going to yeshiva, studied in Israel, and I hadn't even memorized the Ten Commandments. And this Christian minister, this vicar, this priest, like knew his Ten Commandments, although interestingly he had a different order, which is another discussion of for now, how that ended up being, because the order we have comes directly from the book of Exodus, chapter 20. I went straight home and did nothing about it. But many years later, I said, you know what? I better get myself fairly acquainted with the Ten Commandments. So if another priest approaches me, I know what to say to them. Commandment number 3 is don't take the God's name in vain. This commandment actually applies in one place, and one place only. That's a court of law, a bet din. In a court of law, there are times when you have to make a shavua. You got to swear that something is true. What you're not allowed to do, actually, to this day, I was actually in a court of law. Someone stole something from me. I had to swear. I couldn't swear. I had to affirm. Right? When Ambassador Friedman was sworn in as the ambassador for Israel, he couldn't swear because swearing in Judaism is a big deal. You don't want to swear. He had to affirm. Right? He had to affirm and say, I affirm that this duty I'm about to take on. Same thing. We don't swear. We affirm. It's a big, big deal to swear on God's name. Why is it such a big deal? Why is it such a big deal? What's on the other side? What's commandment number 6, 7, 8? Commandment number 8 is, do not steal. Now that's interesting. Do not steal. By the way, do not steal appears somewhere else in the Torah. Over there, however, it's different from this stealing. You're not allowed to steal. If you steal, you got to return and sometimes pay a fine. Over here, this stealing, you get killed for. It's a capital crime. What's stealing in Judaism is a capital crime. I'll tell you. Stealing people. Kidnapping. This commandment, there you go, some interesting information. This commandment number 6, 7, 8 of the Ten Commandments, when it says, Lo tignov, do not steal, it actually means stealing people. The most precious thing that a person can steal is your freedom. And if you steal a person, you kidnap them, which we still have to this day, right? Slavery is actually kidnapping. Actually, it's the biblical definition of kidnapping. You're stealing a person, making them work for you against their will. That really is the biblical definition of what stealing is. And it's considered a heinous crime in Judaism. A person could actually have to forfeit their life. You don't get killed for stealing items because items can be returned, but you do potentially get killed for stealing a person, for taking away their freedom. That's commandment. What's the connection between don't take God's name in vain and don't steal? The answer is very, very, very important. You see, when you stand in a court of law and you say, I swear to tell the truth, the whole truth and nothing but the truth, what you're saying is that me and God are like this. We're like this. It's not just me saying it. I'm bringing in God, right? And me and him are this together. So I'm not telling you what I'm telling you. I'm telling you God's version of it as well. That's bad when you're telling the truth. But it's even worse when you say something in vain, which is a complete lie. Why? What are you kidnapping? Can you kidnap God? Let's make it this way. And the answer is yes. You can in Judaism kidnap God. Well, not God himself, but God's name. Taking God's name or reputation. That's why even humans, right? Ruining a person's reputation is the worst thing you can do. You're kidnapping, you're taking their name for your own nefarious purposes. That's a terrible, terrible thing to do. And so, we are told don't kidnap each other. That's commandment number 8. And commandment number 3 is don't kidnap God by stealing his name in a court of law and using God's reputation for your own nefarious purposes. So over there, what we're really looking at is respect. I respect you and your name and your freedom so I don't kidnap you. And I respect God by telling the truth when I swear in on a Bible. That's the next set. 4 more to go and we're finished in a few minutes. Commandment number 134 is keep Shabbat. Now, interestingly, this actually is a topic in of itself. And next week, God willing, we're going to double click on this commandment because there's a lot to say about Shabbat, more than one class. But we're going to crunch down some central ideas next week. But just like a little preamble, a little introduction, right? A little preface to next week. Shabbat actually is the only one of the 10 commandments, as far as I know, where there is ceremonial aspects included in it, right? We make kiddush, right? We eat meals. We light candles. We say Havdalah. None of the other 9, as far as I know, have anything ceremonial. Say the rabbis, the fact that these 10 were pulled out from all the other mitzvot, these 10 commandments, means there's something about these 10 that represents all the others. And it's true when it comes to Shabbat. Shabbat is the most important mitzvah that we have. And that's why Shabbat made it onto the top 10. And Yom Kippur didn't, and Pesach didn't, and Sukkot didn't, and Purim and Chanukah definitely didn't. They didn't exist at that time. Shabbat is what we're all about. We are the Shabbat people. Shabbat is the essence of who we are as a nation. There's more about the Jewish people. As somebody once said, more than the Jews have kept Shabbat. Shabbat has kept the Jewish people. And for us, Shabbat comes at the end of the week. Right? People think, Shabbat's there, and it's just a day off. It's not a day off. It is the apex, the top part of the week. You start low on Sunday, Yom Rishon. Actually, every day of the week has a number, not a name in Judaism. Right? It's day 1, day 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Shabbat is the only day of the week that has a name, because it's the only day of the week that has a neshama. Shama, Shem. It's got a soul connected to it. So it's given in the other names. The other numbers, you're building up to that point. You say Yom Rishon l'Shabbat, Yom Sheni l'Shabbat, Yom Shlishi l'Shabbat. You're actually building up. You're getting to the high point that is Shabbat. The other days of the week, weekday in Hebrew is chol. Chol means sand. The word for weekday is the same as the word for sand. Why? Because each grain of sand is irrelevant unless they're bunched together. So the days of the week are just like grains of sand that come together, allow us to step on them in order to prepare for Shabbat. There's actually a mitzvah you should know. To prepare for Shabbat every single day of the week. That's how we fulfill the mitzvah of Zachorat Shabbat, to remember Shabbat. On Monday, you see a nice piece of fruit. You're like, that I'm buying in honor of Shabbat. And then on Tuesday, you find a better piece. You eat yesterday's now, and then the next one's for Shabbat. You see a nice pair of shoes. That's Lichvot Shabbat Kodesh. You see a nice suit. I'm buying that in honor of Shabbat. My daughters are very, very careful to fulfill the mitzvah of many, many pairs of shoes for Shabbat. God bless them. That's so holy and religious. And so every day of the week, you're building up to Shabbat itself. And Shabbat is the top point. It came at the end of creation because it's the most important part of creation. And it comes at the end of the week because it's the most important part of the week. Everything we are as a people. Why? What's meant to happen on Shabbat is not just sitting down doing nothing. We get to stop, quiet down the entire week and connect to Hashem directly. That's what we're trying to do on Shabbat. Shabbat is our direct link. Every day of the week, you can pray, do mitzvah, but on Shabbat, every mitzvah is worth 1,000 times, say the rabbis, more than any other day. It's not about us, it's God Day. And that's why it made top 10. And that's why it's the only holiday, if you will, it's not even a holiday, that occurs once a week. There's only one Pesach a year, one Yom Kippur a year, one Tisha B'Av a year, thank God, but there's a Shabbat every single week. There's something so integral, you need it. A seventh of your life needs to be spent in a world called Shabbat. A lot more to say about that. Come back next week. What's on the other side? What's on the other side? On the other side is, very simple, you're not allowed to be a false witness in a court of law, which simply means if you have to testify in a court of law, you can't say you saw something when you didn't, or you saw nothing when you did. You've got to tell the truth in a court of law. Because without courts of law, we don't have just societies, and all of society breaks down. So the 10 Commandments has encoded inside it, you've got to tell the truth in a court of law. People think this commandment is not to lie ever. No. Lying is forbidden, but for other reasons. It doesn't make the top 10, or we'd all be in big, big trouble. We're breaking one of the 10 Commandments whenever we lie. It's talking specifically about lying in a court of law. What's the connection? Keep Shabbat. That's one side. And commandment number 9 is be truthful in a court of law. Don't lie about what you saw or didn't see. Be a truthful witness. The answer, my friends, is so important. What are we doing on Shabbat? We are testifying. What are we testifying to? We actually enter into a court of law, which is in our Jewish homes. We lift up a cup of wine, this beautiful liquid, and we testify that there's a God. Just like our parents did, and our grandparents, and our great-grandparents, all the way back to Mount Sinai. And so we really are the true witnesses. The true God witnesses. Right? Forget Jehovah's Witnesses. We are the real Yud with a Hey, with a Vav, with a Hey witnesses. We testify. That's why there's a custom for many people to stand up when they make Kiddush on Friday night. Just like a person stands up and testifies in a court of law when they swear in, so too we testify and we tell the truth, and that's the connection. We keep Shabbat because we are saying we tell the truth about God. And on the other side, we are truthful in courts of law because we've got to tell the truth about each other, right? And that's the connection. Emet, truth. Truth about God. How do you tell the truth about God? How do you build emunah and faith in the true God? Keep Shabbat. And faith comes with it. And on the other side, tell the truth about each other. We've almost run out of time. We've got to do the last two, which are my favorite connections. Commandment number 5, we already mentioned, is honor your mother and father. Actually, honor your father and mother. Elsewhere it says you have to fear your mother and father. It reverses it. Okay? Because you're meant to honor and fear your parents equally. So it switches over both ways. Okay? And that simply means that you have to listen to your parents. You can't, it's hard. Actually, this, I'm brushing over it. This deserves its own hour. This is the hardest mitzvah in the Torah. Some say the reason Esther Hamalka, Queen Esther, was so successful in her mission in saving the Jewish people is that she was an orphan. And the fact that she was an orphan means she didn't fall when it came to making mistakes, when it came to honoring her parents. Because you're not allowed to contradict your parents. You can't call them by their first name. You're not allowed to sit in your father or mother's seat. If your father's got a lazy boy, that's his chair, you can't sit in it. Okay? Your father asks you, you do it. You can't even contradict your parents. Wow, this is very, very tough. And it made the top 10. Honoring parents. Right? You can't call your parents by their first name. If your father's name is Harry, he goes, hey, Harry, how you doing? There's a mitzvah when your parents walk into the room, you're meant to stand up for them. I mean, not every time. It'd be like a yo-yo. At least the first time in the morning when you see them. Right? Today we're on our phones. Yeah, hi, mum, hi, dad. You can't do that. You can't do that. It's a hard mitzvah. Right? I try my best to call my parents every single day. It's tough. You're busy. I got wife. I got kids. I got 3-5 jobs. I got stuff going on. It's hard. But you're fulfilling a Torah mitzvah when you do it. What's on the other side? The other side is what we mentioned last Wednesday. Lo tachmod, do not be jealous. Which simply means you're not allowed to covet other people's things. You can't look at other people's things and be like, wow, I want that. I'm going to try to get it. Right? Their house, their business, their spouse. It's not a healthy thing. More about that, visit last Wednesday's class. It's on Instagram and Facebook Live. But jealousy, an emotion. You're meant to try to conquer your emotions. And this particular emotion is seen as one of the worst ones to have because really the root of all other bad traits somehow, see the rabbis, is jealousy. Because you become jealous. You want people's things, so you steal them. And then you find you can't get it, so you kill them. Right? If not physically, then financially. And you end up not believing in God. It's actually a trickle-down version. What starts with do not be jealous ends up with disbelieving in God. That's what the Ramban says. Actually, number 10 could be more important than all the others. The fact that it comes at the bottom means it's a foundation and not just an afterthought. Anyway, what's the connection? What's the connection between number 5, honor your mother and father, and number 10, don't be jealous? Here's the beautiful answer to this, my friends. Listen very carefully. This could change your life. Who made you who you are? Who gave you your eye color? Who gave you your brains, your education, your upbringing? It's your parents. Many of us think to ourselves during our lives, wow, I wish my father could be like rich like Jeff Bezos or a big rabbi like Rabbi Akiva, Moshe Rabbeinu, or my local Orthodox rabbi, whoever it is, right? Honor your mother and father. It's not a coincidence you're born to that family. Don't be jealous and be like, wow, if they were my parents, my life would be so much better. Don't we all do that sometimes? The only reason I'm like this is because my parents made me this way. And we're told don't do that. Honor your mother and father, the parents you were given and the children you're given were not coincidental either. It wasn't like God saying, I've got two parents, give them some kids, okay, fine, I'll take Barry, I'll take Shoshana, right, I'll take Al. It doesn't work that way. It's all connected. Don't be jealous. Everything you have, every trait you have, your nose, your eyes, your education, your brain power, your IQ, your hair, or lack thereof, it's all genetic. It's from your parents. That's one answer. Don't be jealous and think that if you had other parents, everything would be fantastic. I'll give you another answer. And the other answer I heard a number of years ago from, I forgot his name. He was the chief rabbi of Mexico. They lived in Canada. He'll come back to me. If anyone knows, he can put it in the chat. I heard it on a tape of his. And he gave a beautiful answer to this question. The connection between honor your mother and father and don't be jealous. What makes you Jewish? Your mother. What makes your mother Jewish? Her mother. What makes her mother? Her mother goes all the way back. When it says honor your mother and father, what gives you your custom? What makes you Ashkenazi Sephardi? Your father. What makes you Jewish? Your parents. You know what we're being told? Honor your Judaism. Honor your mother and father means honor the religion you have. We have all these Jews that are getting involved in all these other religions and sects and cults and isms, right? Every Jew wants to be, I don't know, a Buddhist. It's so cool, right? And a Kabbalist and all these other religions. No! Honor the religion your parents gave you. Your parents gave you something which they received from their parents, received from their parents, and received from their parents. Honor your mother and father is another way of saying honor your Judaism. Feel good you were born Jewish. It's not a coincidence. Jews make up 0.02% of the world population. It's not a coincidence you were made Jewish. You have a unique, special Jewish mission in this world. Every nation has a mission in this world. And you as a Jew, yours is Jewish. Don't be jealous and say, oh, if I was a Buddhist, if I was a Christian, a Muslim, right, or a Hindu, such beautiful religions. No. Don't do that. Because you're actually going against what your parents gave you. Your parents represent the Judaism that was downloaded into you, and that's acceptance. That's our final of the 5 expressions, right? That we looked at this evening. Acceptance. Accept who you are, which means what your parents gave you, and accept what you have. Don't be jealous of other people. 10 statements and 5 connecting values that really are the bedrock of who we are as the Jewish people. Wow, I've overrun my time again. I apologize. Hope you've enjoyed it. If you want to review this class, it will be live on Facebook and live on Instagram following this speech. I wish you all a successful week. We'll be on tomorrow at 12 p.m. when we'll be discussing the concept of pleasure. And actually, we're looking at another number, and that is 5. 5 levels of pleasure will be tomorrow's class at 12 p.m. Have an amazing, successful, fantastic week. Shalom.